needed. All right, let's get started. So it is June, so we are in class number 6. We're doing one class a month on the first Monday of each month in this year, 2025. But we did not get through all of the material from last month in May, so we're going to review some of that. But we're actually going to start with chapter 7, which is the eating away from home chapter, and then we'll circle back to the end of chapter 6 for preparing meals at home, because hopefully it'll be motivating. By the time we look at the stuff eating out and see how tricky it can be, hopefully you'll be motivated to be doing more at-home cooking. So if anyone wants to put in the Q&A any learnings from last week, so the homework, or last month, the homework was to work on meal planning, refine your grocery list, your procedure, check out your cupboard and refrigerator and freezer, do a little sleuthing while you go out shopping, take some extra time to read labels, things like that. If anyone has comments from that you would like to share, please go ahead and put that in the Q&A. And I'll check on that in a minute. Okay, so eating out. What are the pitfalls? Definitely portions. Oftentimes when we go out to eat, it really, from like a calorie sense, it's really like 2 to 3 meals often, as far as, calories for how much fuel we need at one sitting. And sometimes like it's on a platter instead of like a plate. Plus you get the appetizers ahead of time. Plus there's the fun drinks. Plus there's the fun desserts. There's just so many things that can kind of add up with the eating out. Also, we sometimes treat it like a treat. So we're kind of partying and celebrating and, tend to maybe overdo it a little bit. So some of that might be a mindset about how we're approaching the eating out. Sometimes I've had my patients tell me that they are saving up for the meal. So they're like trying to not eat during the day, or they skip their timing, they skip their afternoon snack, and then they go out to eat at night and are ravenous. So try to not do that. Like, we want to be on our normal schedule, because you'll be better able to make a healthier decision, and also like just not be so hungry that you want to overeat when you get there. So try not to like save up, because it does backfire. And then, of course, some of the pitfalls are just like, what is in the food? Like, sometimes we don't know. A lot of times it is extra salt, fat, and sugar, because those are the things that taste good, right? So there are some definite pitfalls. Of course, it's also lovely to, be treated and not have to cook dinner, go out occasionally. And especially if it is occasional versus your, day-to-day thing, then it's not going to be that big of a deal. One meal out for a celebration, not a big deal. But if it becomes so that it's like you're doing the takeout or you're going out to eat multiple times a week, then all of a sudden that does become a bigger piece of what is your normal, right? Okay, I'm going to just check the Q&A really quick. There's a few answers. Kay says newly diagnosed and overwhelmed. Yeah, there's a lot to learn, but you're here, just one thing at a time. So you'll learn something tonight, whatever it is that sticks for you, and then next time you'll learn something new. So yeah, don't feel like you have to do it or know it all right away. You don't have to do it immediately or all at once. In fact, it's better to make changes gradually over time so that they're really sticking. Okay, Diane says I switched from tubs of greens to buying heads of lettuce and greens. Oh yeah, fun. So you're actually like doing some prep, washing. I'm curious why you did that switch. Because for me, I'm like, oh, take the win, take the triple washed, ready to go. If it gets me to eat more salad, like my husband and I go through a lot of salad every week. That's actually his favorite dinner, is salad. With protein, right? Salad and protein. So we take the win, like it's ready to go, spring greens, like mixed greens. But yeah, if you're trying to like eat different lettuce or like have less plastic in your life, there's some reasons that the heads are nice. Okay, Nancy says grocery shopping is easier when you do a meal plan. Ding, 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 ding. That is the key actually for all of this is to have a plan. Or at least to have like your go-to recipes where you always have those things on hand. So it's like a backup plan. So even if you didn't plan for this week, you have enough in the pantry, in the freezer where you can put together meals that you know everybody in the house likes, fit your goals as far as they're going to be supportive for your health goals. Um, yeah, and you've got all those ingredients. Cost savings has been obvious when I have a plan. Yeah, that's so true, Nancy. Absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna clear some of these. Okay, okay. Oh, Lyle, nice. Prepared 4 salads yesterday, ready to eat. Yay. Love it. That's great. You're thinking ahead. Okay, so restaurant strategies. Treat it like a special occasion only if it is a special occasion. Right? Because if it becomes like your day to day or if it becomes multiple times a week, that's not special anymore. So then you don't want to be doing like the dessert, the appetizer, the special drink, all of those things. Like that's like just a normal Tuesday night dinner, right? So then you want to think about how is that supporting your goals? Make a game plan and stick to it. So these days, with restaurants that have 20 or more, so it is a chain with 20 or more locations, they have to, by law, provide the nutrition information. So here's a couple examples from a Denny's. Um, I forget why I came across this because I was at SeaTac and I was waiting for somebody. I flew in, had a couple hours to hang out, was very hungry. It was the morning. Went to breakfast at Denny's and they had this Fit Fare menu. So sometimes they have like an actual separate menu where it's like a little bit healthier version, or they'll have like a heart healthy menu. Many times you don't know that they have it because they give you their regular menu, but you got to ask for it. Like at Red Robin's or some of these other chains, Applebee's, you can ask for the healthier menu or ask if they have one. So this Fit Fare menu, so that's interesting. This was from a couple years ago, but I thought it was interesting because it was more calorie controlled, um, not necessarily salt controlled. So let's look at the sodium line here. So this veggie skillet, which is what I was kind of gravitating towards when I looked at the sodium, 1,270 milligrams of sodium, that's almost my entire intake for the day, versus the loaded veggie omelet, which had basically half that amount of salt. So if blood pressure and sodium intake is something that you're watching, then I would think, ooh, maybe this veggie skillet isn't the best choice because there's a better option here, right? However, then we've got to factor in, think about some of the other things here, like the carbs, 40 grams of carbs, whereas the omelet has 57. And that's because it's not in the omelet, right? It's in the fruit and the English muffin that's coming with the omelet. So maybe you like, if that's a little bit too much for you, if you're an active guy and you're gonna go, do a walk or whatever, 57 grams, you should be able to probably handle that. Of course, everyone's an individual, so hopefully you either know if you're checking your blood sugar and you actually have diabetes, or if you don't know, then that's a good question for your dietitian in your one-on-one session. But for a gal, especially maybe someone who's like middle to older age and who's a little bit more sedentary, that's a lot of carbs. So you probably don't need all that energy at one time. So I would think about like, what do I want right now? Do I want the fruit or do I want the English muffin? Pick one and save the other for later or do something else, share it, maybe even share it because the portion on this is pretty big and the protein is actually more than I need, like 33 grams of protein at one sitting for this omelet. That's a lot. So I actually might want to split this with somebody, or I might want to split it in half with myself and have the other half in a few hours. So something to think about. So there's a few things that you might want to look at when you're looking at labels and doing some comparisons. Like you might want to compare calories if you're watching weight. You might want to compare the sodium if you're thinking about blood pressure. You might want to compare the carbs if you're really watching blood sugar. And then, getting adequate protein, which for a meal really should be 20 grams or more at a sitting for a meal for most people. Okay, let's look at another option. So here's the Applebee's Oriental chicken salad versus their strawberry balsamic chicken. And frankly, I'm going for the Oriental chicken salad because I like it better, even though I know that the strawberry chicken salad is a better deal. So then what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to cut it in half and just save half for later. I'll probably get the dressing on the side so that it saves better, right? You can just have that dressing on the side and then your salad isn't getting soggy and your crispy chicken isn't getting soggy. But sometimes it's a matter of like having what you want, but then making some adjustments to like how much you're having at one time. And that's what I would do here. Just because I rarely go to Applebee's, and if I'm gonna do it, I really want what I want. So, let me just look at what Diane said here about the salad. Only when eating, so heads of lettuce stay fresh longer. That is so true. Less plastic, less risk of cross-contamination due to mixes of lettuce and tubs. Also trying more varieties of greens. Yeah, fun. Kale, bok choy, dandelion greens. I would add like Swiss chard, arugula. Yeah, fantastic. Definitely the heads tend to last longer, and especially like when you get into like the cabbage family, like Napa cabbage and like just heads of cabbage tend to last a very long time. And when you're cooking for one and you're trying to like get through it, sometimes they last a while, right? So yeah, cutting down on food waste is fantastic. Okay. Let me get back to our slides here. All right, so some strategies with eating out. Definitely ask questions. Ask for that healthy menu if they've got it. Ask how things are prepared. Ask for the sauce on the side or the dressing on the side. Ask for substitutions. So what are some substitutions that you guys are already doing when you eat out? So for example, the salad instead of the fries or veggies, like sometimes I'll get double veggies. Yeah, so put in the Q&A what kinds of things you're doing eating out. And then be menu savvy. So, language that you might be a little hesitant about, crispy, fried, creamy, breaded, smothered. Sounds so good. Thick, rich, au gratin, versus, some lighter fare that might make you feel a little better, not blow your budget for, whatever it is, calories, fat, carbs. Things like steamed, seared, poached, roasted, grilled, lightly sauteed, blackened, baked. Those are all clues that, the process, like the way it's cooked and how the things are added to it or not, might be a little bit more in line with your goals. Yeah, so Kay says you can ask to have the fish poached instead of fried. Exactly. That's so nice. And then it also, like, you're not mixing, because sometimes that fryer oil is old and it's got like, they're doing lots of things in there, like onion rings and fries and, other stuff. So yeah, just getting it poached. I love that. Or they can just pan saute it quickly. So nice option. Alrighty. Let's compare a few different potatoes. So this is data on baked potato versus fries versus mashed potatoes, and this is from a couple years ago. So they may have, You know, these are fast food restaurants. They may have changed their formulas, and hopefully they actually are, because with the guidelines for lowering sodium over time, fast food restaurants and processed, like packaged foods, should be getting less salty, and they're doing it gradually so that people don't rise up and revolt at the taste changes. Um, so, you know, you can look at the menus, you can, it's at all these places actually, and you have the access to know these numbers. But at the time, so a couple years ago when I put this together, here, these were the comparisons. So a Wendy's baked potato is around 320 calories. The small fry is about the same. The mashed potato side order is about the same. The calories are not the issue. I mean, there's a lot here for it being a side, but still, they're all about the same. However, let's do some comparisons on the carbs. So the baked potato, 63 grams, but there's a lot of fiber here. So 7 of that 63 is fiber. And remember, fiber is the one type of carb that we don't turn into sugar. We don't break it down. It feeds your gut microbiome. It makes you feel more full. So the more fiber, the better the deal. So I would really look at this as closer to like 56 grams that's actually going to turn into sugar in the body. Okay. A small fry has about 44 grams and 4 grams of fiber. So you're looking at about 40 grams of carbs. And the Applebee's mashed potato has 38 minus 4, so about 34 grams of carbs that's going to turn into sugar. So technically, like, the garlic mashed potatoes is the best deal from like a carb sense here for a portion. However, let's look at the salt. So the garlic mashed potatoes has 900 milligrams of sodium, and that's just a side. That's not even your main dish. Whereas the small fry has about 529 milligrams, which I would consider is about right for like an entire meal. Versus the baked potato, which is basically almost nothing sodium wise. It's so low. There's a little bit naturally in the potato. There's a little bit in the sour cream topper. But this one is a really good deal salt wise. And it has the most protein. So this actually could be like a meal. I would want to add some veggies to it, like add some broccoli or add a side salad. But this is going to be, the baked potato is going to be a lot more filling because of the fiber and the protein compared to like a French fry or a mashed potato. So just depending on, what you're going for, what you're looking for, there's some pros and cons. And, looking at more than one thing than just carbs to see the bigger picture of what's happening here. Okay, let me look at a few more comments. Okay, Virginia says, I tend to opt for the salad rather than the fries. Yeah, that's a nice way to go. And then just steal a few fries from somebody else so you can get a taste for it, but not the whole deal. Especially if you already have other carbohydrates in that meal. Like if it's a burger and fries, you've got plenty of carbs in that bun, right? So yeah, think about what else is in the meal. You might really not want all of those extra carbohydrates that are going to raise blood sugar. I'm picking on carbs because specifically we're thinking about blood sugar control. Not that there's anything wrong with carbs in and of themselves. It's just we tend to have a lot of them here, and they tend to be quite processed. So like eating out with the bun, that's highly processed, and even the fries, highly processed. So as far as how it's going to spike blood sugar, it's going to be pretty dramatic. Okay. And then Lyle shared, I was eating out for breakfast and this dinner allowed tomatoes instead of potato. Oh, a diner. Yes. Allowed tomatoes instead of potatoes. I love that. They're basically giving you botanically, tomatoes are fruit, right? But they are vegetable-like in the sense that they are low in carbohydrates. So they're basically giving you a vegetable side, which is amazing. I love that. Great choice, Lyle. Okay, let's look at some more strategies. So make requests kindly. I always say be polite, be picky but polite. Can the dish be made with a different protein? Or can you like maybe skip the thing at the beginning, like the chips or the bread at the beginning? Leave out the bacon, like on a burger, for example, if you don't want that extra saturated fat, you're watching your cholesterol, for example. You could ask to go light on the salt. Sometimes they actually will add salt at the very end. So there's salt throughout the whole cooking process, and then they do that finishing salt as well. You can just skip that finishing salt. You can always salt it at the table if you need to, right? Okay. Do be mindful of intake overall, adjust by small increments to accommodate a meal out. Um, so basically, you're trying to keep your overall healthy eating plan in mind. So you might adjust, I guess the point of this is you might adjust by little amounts what you do in the day if you know you're going out to eat, but don't just like starve yourself because that always backfires, right? Um, or you might adjust your timing. Like, let's say that dinner's going to be a little bit earlier, you're going for happy hour. You might not need that afternoon snack because it's only going to be 4.5 hours from lunch until dinner. That might be an occasion where you skip the afternoon snack because dinner's earlier, right? So you can make some little adjustments that way. But yeah, don't skip meals to save up for dinner. Think about your timing. Um, okay. Restaurant strategies continued. Beware of health halos. So sometimes we feel like the food is healthier because it's like ethnic or we have some sort of like idea in our head. The health halo thing is from originally it came out of like that low fat craze that we had back in the 80s where they went low fat, but then just added a bunch of sugar, and people were ended up eating more of like the things, like the cookies, for example, that had the label low fat because they felt like it was healthier. So then people were just eating more of them. So don't have this health halo effect. Like really think about, are you full? Are you satisfied? Stopping when you get to that point. Especially this is hard with eating out because of that volume of food. So, I mean, it might only be like a third of the plate that you've eaten before you start getting that fullness feeling. And we're very visual with how we eat. So that might be really difficult to stop at that point, but like checking in with yourself can be helpful throughout that meal. Or even some people will have like, the box at the beginning where they put half of aside and kind of have it out of sight, out of mind, and then still check in and see how things are going fullness wise. And sometimes, these things that we think are more healthy, like I think about like a stir fry, for example, but if all of a sudden it's made with a lot of salt or like a lot of soy sauce, and the salt is really high, or it's got the coconut milk in there, and all of a sudden the saturated fat is really high, that is more of like an indulgent type food. And so, you just want to treat it like that versus something that is, doesn't have those added things to it. And so it's gonna fit a little bit better in your overall intake. Let's do a comparison on these rices that are listed here. So we've got P.F. Chang's brown rice. This is a side. Panda Express fried rice. This is meant to be an entree, but I will tell you that oftentimes what I hear from my patients is that they treat it like a side. They think the fried rice is a side. It's an entree. And you can see the difference here, like 6 ounces of steamed brown rice versus 9 ounces. That's quite a bit of fried rice. So if you're treating the fried rice as like a side dish to your main, just know like you've got 2 main dishes. You've got 2 entrees there. Okay, let's compare the calories. So the brown rice is just straight up brown rice. So low calories, 40 grams of carbs, 3 grams of fiber. There's a little bit of protein in there because it is brown rice, 0 sodium. Versus the fried rice, we're really talking about like meal-sized portion here, 530 calories, double the amount of carbs. Now it does have more protein, and that's great because they're adding like the eggs in there. So you've got some protein, a lot more fat because they have fried it, right? So that's where that fat comes with the oil, frying in the oil, and then a lot more sodium. So if you already have like a main entree, probably you want to go with the brown rice as a side instead of the fried, or less of the fried, like split it, between multiple people. Yeah, so you can kind of see those differences there. And when you see it, then it helps you make a decision that's going to support your goals. Maybe you still, decide, nope, I really want the fried rice. That's fine. But at least you know that it's higher carb, higher calorie, higher salt. And maybe you do like a little bit more of a workout or something to get rid of some of that sodium. You make sure you're hydrating well, fluid wise. You take a walk after dinner, whatever it is. Okay, let me look at the Q&A. Virginia. What about the lectins in the tomatoes? Okay. Thank you for bringing this up. So lectins is all over your social media for those of you who are on social media. Please do not worry about lectins. That is a made up thing. I mean, it is a real thing in foods, but it's a made up thing that it is a harm to us. So don't worry about that. Definitely don't worry about it in any of like your grains, your lentils, your beans. Anytime you do anything with those grains and beans, like soaking or cooking, which that's how we eat them, the lectins are inert. So really don't worry about lectins. And they're so low in tomatoes, so it's not an issue. The lectin thing came out from a particular physician who is on the internet who is making a bunch of money by selling you an enzyme to help break down lectins. So when you see things like this, follow the money. And if it leads back to them selling you something, this is telling you something, right? It's a red flag. Think about like how long have we been eating tomatoes for? A very long time. How long have, or like what are the healthiest populations in the planet eating? They're eating grains and beans. Okay. So don't worry about lectins. Restaurant strategy. So be picky. Don't eat it if you don't love it. At buffets, and this is true for like summer's coming up. We've got probably some picnics. We've got some potlucks and things. At buffets, it's really nice to like do the perusal of everything that's there first. Or like, let's say you're going on a cruise, you're going to do the Alaska Inside Passage cruise, and they have the buffet of food like ready for you, ready to go. What we see is that oftentimes people will fill up with whatever is first in that line, and then you get to the latter part of the buffet and it's like, oh, but I really want this and I really want that. We're still going to have the things we really want on top of like whatever else we've already chosen. So it's really nice to like get the lay of the land, see what's there first, make that kind of plate in your mind. Hopefully you're kind of building it out. Quarter starch, quarter protein, half non-starchy vegetables. So then you can like make those decisions as you get to it. So you have a sense of like, what do I really want? If it's like the dessert, maybe you actually skip something else in the meal in order to like fit in the thing that you really want to have, right? Like if you really want the cheesecake, but you don't care about the potatoes, maybe you have the cheesecake. But just get the lay of the land so you can actually make those decisions and build your plate up. And then slowing down with eating out, savoring all of it, the presentation, being out, being social, giving yourself that 20 minutes Sometimes this is actually easier when we're eating out because we are being social than when we're at home. At home, sometimes we're just like, quickly eating, or if we're, eating during our workday, sometimes we don't slow down to pay attention. But it does take that 20 minutes to get those, stretch receptors going in the stomach and feeling full. So, yeah, just savor it. Slow down and savor. Okay. Some portions that might be helpful just to have a reference. So, for example, like a tennis ball is about a cup. So if you've got like your carbohydrate, like your rice, your pasta, your potatoes, your bread is bigger than this, which it probably is eating out. Like, teriyaki, they give you 2 big scoops of rice. That's like 2 meals from a carbohydrate sense. Plus, you've got the teriyaki sauce on there. It's a lot. So, think about that. You might want to cut the whole teriyaki thing in half because it's like, if you think about a plate, it's protein and carbs. Where's the vegetables, right? So, you might want to cut it in half, but add what you're missing: steamed broccoli or a salad, or whatever vegetable they have. So make it go farther, but get the veggies in there so you still feel full, you have some color, you get some crunch, but you're not overdoing it on like the protein and the carbs. So tennis ball is a nice kind of reference for your carbs. What else here? The deck of cards is a nice reference for protein. Sometimes eating out, it's like protein, right? When we really want like protein, palm of the hand size. So that's the other references you could do the hand portion. So palm for protein, fist for carbs, double fist for vegetables. And that gets you in the realm of like a balanced intake for you, because everybody has different size that goes along with our hand size as well. So yeah, so maybe do some comparisons, because the eating out, like, it's portion distortion for sure. All right, some more strategies. Try not to drink your calories, ideally. We don't sense them the same as we sense like solid foods. And so usually we're going to drink those calories on top of whatever we're going to eat. So if you look here at like, juices, some of the portions and like the size of the cups we have these days, it's really like a meal in the form of juice, or it's a meal in the form of soda. Um, yeah, and it's, just not as satisfying as real food. And then what else? Be cautious of deals. I always say, like, don't pay for it twice. Like, you've already paid, it's a sunk cost as far as what you're paying for, like, if you go to a buffet, for example. It's a sunk cost. You're going to pay the same amount. Don't pay for it twice with like having more than you want or not getting exactly what you want. Because it's just not worth it. But sometimes we get in that like, that thriftiness. It's like a fallacy, right? So we think we're being thrifty and it's costing us the same regardless. Okay. So that was all the stuff on eating out. So lots of reasons to be eating more at home. Now we're circling back to some of that information that we didn't get to last month. So lots of reasons to eat more at home as far as like realistic portion sizes, saving money, controlling what goes in there, salt, fat, sugar, all of those things. I did give you a few cookbooks and ideas. If you just, are starting somewhere and you're like, where do I even start with all this? I really like this diabetes meal by the plate because it's very visual and it's very practical as far as just like practical everyday meals. So that's a good one. But let's get into some of the nitty gritty that we didn't get to last time. So we talked about your recipe collection, maybe tweaking your recipes over time to be a little healthier, or like getting rid of the ones that don't work for you anymore. So some simple substitutions can make a difference. I don't know if any of you have made homemade dressing, but it is very, very easy to do and it's very inexpensive. And then you get to control like the amount of salt that goes in there. There's not going to be any like preservatives or those added gums and things that they're adding to the dressings that sit on the shelf. So basically you just need an acid, an oil, and some seasoning. So that could be, your acid could be a vinegar or like a citrus. Your oil could be whatever oil you have on hand, whatever you like and sounds good on that salad or however you're using it. And then your flavorings could be salt and pepper. And then if you have some herbs, like dried herbs, or if you have some garlic or you have some ginger, something like that. I mean, it really doesn't have to be complicated. I like to do half and half acid and oil. Some of like the more French recipes, it's higher oil. It's like 2 parts oil, 1 part acid. But I like half and half. It's a little tangier and it's a little bit better deal in the calorie sense. So try making your own dressing at home. It's very easy. A nice substitution for sour cream is a plain Greek yogurt or like a strained yogurt. The nice thing about the yogurts is they are more concentrated in protein. So they're creamy, but the calories are less because you can get them like the low or the zero fat yogurt, and the calories are less because the fat's gone, right? Whereas with the sour cream, that fat is still there, including the saturated fat. And then the yogurts, you can get the probiotics with that. Although I will say there are a couple sour creams on the market, like Nancy's, for example, where she's putting the probiotics in there. So that is a nice deal. So even if you just like, swapped to that, it can be a nice option for you. Sugar and baking. So a lot of our recipes that are, like from your grandma or from a while ago, a lot of those recipes can be reduced in sugar by a significant amount, like by up to a third without messing up the recipe. And then you can also do some swaps. So you can use fruit as a sweetener. So oftentimes I will do a plum puree in my cookies, like at Christmas time. Just basically blend up plums, cut the sugar, and actually you can cut the fat with that too, because it's this nice consistency. Or some people will use like applesauce or again, like the Greek yogurt in baked goods, like in a quick bread, for example. And then you can cut the fat and the sugar. If you are adding a liquid though, so like applesauce or like a Greek yogurt, you're adding some liquid. So you might need to, reduce whatever the liquid is in that recipe. You might need to adjust like the added milk or the added water or whatever, it's calling for by a little bit. And if you've made the recipe before, you can kind of tell like consistency wise what it's supposed to be like. So just, cut that liquid a little bit if you're adding something that has a lot of moisture in it already. And then, spices, whatever you want to add spice wise is fantastic because then you're adding a lot of antioxidants, a lot of flavor. Spices are like, basically the most nutrient dense thing we have. So like 0 calories, but there's vitamin C and there's, other things in there that are lovely nutrition wise. Instead of breadcrumbs, you could do some rolled oats. I will often do rolled oats in actually like meat recipes. So like if you're making meatballs, for example, or like little turkey meatballs or like a meatloaf, it's nice to use the oats instead of breadcrumbs. You're getting a little bit more of a whole grain and you're getting that special soluble fiber from the oats that really helps lower cholesterol. That's a nice addition. Some people are also just going like without the grain and using like an almond flour or like a finely chopped nuts, for example, if you are doing like a coating on something. So for example, my mother-in-law just made the other day some white fish that was pecan crusted. So good. Really nice option. Let me look at the Q&A really quick. Lori says, I'm trying to find a good tasting butter substitute to use at home. I'm curious what you use or recommend. Yeah, so I totally hear you. Some of the butter substitutes are a little bit meh. I will say from a like a nutrition sense, they don't have the trans fats anymore, so we don't have to worry about like the margarine thing. So from like a heart health sense, don't worry about that because the trans fats are gone. Um, my favorite is actually a blend of butter, olive oil, like from Land O'Lakes, where they do half and half. Land O'Lakes is a Minnesota company. I'm from Minnesota, so I'm a little bit partial to Land O'Lakes. But I like the fact that they've put the olive oil in there, but you still get the butter flavor, but it's spreadable, right? So it's like, it's just nice. It's nice for toast. You're cutting this total saturated fat from what butter would be straight up, but you're getting that olive oil. And Kay agrees with me here. Yay. Just gonna say Land O'Lakes. Yeah, it's delicious. Um, okay. I mean, some other ones that are okay, that are fine, like nutrition wise, like the Earth Balance and the Smart Balance. When you look at them, they're a blend of oils. So it's like, olive oil, canola oil, safflower oil, maybe a little bit of like palm or coconut for a little bit of solidity there. So to make it spreadable instead of just an oil, but they will be lower saturated fat than butter. However, they might be higher sodium. So, they're making it taste good. So they're adding salt. So if you're comparing that to like a no salt butter, those spreads are going to be higher sodium, just so you know. Okay. Oh, and then Kay says cooked quinoa is great in meatloaf. I have never tried that, but now I'm curious. So I'll have to add that to my meatloaf the next time I make one. Okay, let's keep going with some of these ideas. White flour can be substituted 100% for whole wheat pastry flour. So I don't know if you guys have seen this in the grocery store. Sometimes it's like lower down. You got to look at like the bottom shelf. Whole wheat pastry flour is whole wheat, but it's ground more fine like a regular flour, and it acts more like an all-purpose flour. So you can just sub 100%. So I don't even buy all-purpose anymore. I just get the whole wheat pastry flour. Or if you want to do half and half, you could get some whole wheat. Let's say you already have the white flour at home. You could do half and half in your baked goods. You'll add a little bit of fiber, a little bit of protein. It'll be a little bit more hearty, but it's not going to totally change up your recipe. Whereas if you went with like 100% whole wheat, like that's really going to change the texture and the flavor. So, you still want it to be palatable and to like bake and work the way that you expect it to. Okay, butter or shortening. If you are replacing oil instead of butter in a recipe, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio because butter has some water and it has some protein in it. So if you had like a cup of butter and you did a cup of oil, it's actually going to increase the calories with the oil because the oil is just straight up fat, right? There's nothing else in there. So it's a 3/4 to 1 ratio. So 3/4 oil to 1 butter. So if you have a tablespoon of butter, it's, 3/4 of a tablespoon of the oil to get the same amount of fat. So you just want to be careful with that so you're just not overdoing it. And then there are some really nice substitutes like mashed avocado, Greek yogurt, banana, applesauce, chia seed. You can actually substitute in chia seed for some of the oil or butter in your recipe. And it's a 3-to-1 ratio. So 3 tablespoons for 1 tablespoon, 3 tablespoons chia seed for 1 tablespoon of butter gives you about the same amount of fat, but the chia gives you those omega-3 fats and a lot of soluble fiber. However, you're only going to do a little bit in that recipe, right? Like you're only going to replace 1 tablespoon of butter. You're not going to replace a cup of butter with 3 cups of chia seed because it's going to change your recipe too much, right? So you can do a little bit of substitution there and get some nice wins, but you're not going to like sub out, the whole amount. Okay. Butter on toast, we already talked about some spreads, or even just like skip the butter or vegetable spread and just put on like a nut butter or a seed butter. That would be lovely. You don't need to double up. Like, my family is from the Midwest. Like, you put butter on everything first and then you get your topping on that. It's not needed, right? You've got plenty of heart healthy fat in like an almond butter or peanut butter or sunflower butter, whatever you're using. And then you're adding like the protein as well with those nut and seed butters. It's the heart healthy fat and you've got the fiber there. Okay, cheddar cheese. So, speaking of growing up in the Midwest, like cheddar cheese is like a whole food group unto itself. So, just think about portion, right? Like a good cheese is lovely, do quality over quantity. Doesn't need to be like throughout. Like if you have a casserole that you're making, for example, it doesn't need to be like the cheese throughout the casserole plus the topping. Pick one. Maybe you just do the little sprinkle on top, so that you're not overdoing it. And pick a really nice cheese, like one that has a lot of flavor so that you can use less of it, but really enjoy that cheese. Okay, what about meat on sandwiches? So here's some nice options for like whole food options that have either like protein or heart healthy fats, like avocado on a sandwich, hummus, cream cheese. Sometimes I'll do that in wraps where like part of my protein is the cream cheese on a wrap and then like a lean deli meat, lots and lots of vegetables in there. I might also do the avocado as well. So you got cream cheese, avocado, and the deli meat, plus your veggies. Kay has a super easy hummus recipe. Canned chickpeas, which is garbanzo beans. Mash it with a fork. Great on a sandwich and with veggies. Yeah. Do you put a little like pepper on there or spice or like anything else, or are you just literally mashing the chickpeas and that's it? Some people will make it with like a little bit of lemon. Okay, a little bit of olive oil. Yeah, nice. So you're just adding like a little bit of heart healthy fat, giving a little moisture, which is great. Yeah, Kay loves beans. That's fantastic. Beans are so healthy, really good protein source. They technically do have carbs, but it's a lot of fiber in there. So if you have not incorporated beans into your life, it's a good one to add. Okay, let's keep going with some substitutions. So cream in soups and sauces. A lot of times you can just do less of the cream. Like if you're making a cream of broccoli or like sometimes in the winter I'll make like a cream of wild rice soup and it calls for like 2 cups of cream. I don't even use that anymore. I don't need cream. You don't need all that saturated fat. I just use some milk, whatever milk we have on hand, low fat milk in there. And then I do a little bit of a roux to thicken it. So like a little flour in either the milk or a little flour in a little broth. And then once you heat that in the soup, it adds that nice mouthfeel and creaminess. Um, yeah, so careful with the creams because that adds up really fast. Or sometimes this is a great idea, the pureeing of the veggies or beans. Like you take part of that soup out, like a couple cups, you throw it in a blender, blend it up, pour it back in the soup. Now all of a sudden you've got this creaminess throughout, and it's just like what was in the soup, like your veggies and your beans or whatever was in the soup. But that you're making like that creaminess and that mouthfeel from what was just naturally there. Cream sauces like for pasta, like think about other pasta sauces like your tomato based or pestos or even just like a straight up like olive oil and garlic, right? It's very easy, simple. Dressings and marinades, yeah, change that ratio of oil to vinegar. So a little bit more vinegar, a little less oil. With your ground beef or like your ground turkey and things, try to look for at least 90% lean so that you're having less of that saturated fat, or just sub it out completely for like a plant-based option, like beans or lentils. Sometimes we'll do like lentil taco night. You just cook your lentils in a little bit of broth, add a bunch of salsa. That works really well. Some people will substitute mushrooms, like instead of a burger. Like sometimes they'll do that like big portobello that gives you that umami kind of savory flavor and a little bit of like that meaty texture. So that can be a nice sub. And then for dips, we've got lots of dips these days. I will say that if you haven't checked out the Greek yogurt dips yet, like Lighthouse and Bolthouse have some really nice Greek yogurt dips. They've got their dressings in the refrigerated section of the grocery store, which are great. But they also have dips now, and they're delicious with a bunch of different flavors. So, if you're trying to up your veggie game and you like, dipping your veggies, that's a nice way to go because you're getting like a little bit more protein with that Greek yogurt. You're getting some of the probiotics, but it's, less of that saturated fat. So check it out if you haven't tried it yet. Okay, and then let's get through actually, let's look at the chat, the Q&A. Diane says pureed beans can add creaminess to soups. Exactly. That's such a good hack. And then Sharon says, I really like the black beans. Are canned black beans too heavy? No. Or fattening? No. So watch the sodium. Like if you have canned black beans in your pantry right now, probably if they're the regular ones, the salt's pretty high. But when you rinse that, you can rinse up to about 40% of that salt off of whatever that vegetable is. Some of the salt is going to be in the vegetable already, right? Like in the flesh that you can't get rid of. But just give it a good rinse so that you're not getting so much, like a salt bomb. But no, beans are actually really satiating because of the protein and the fiber. They basically don't have any fat in them. So you actually might want to add a little bit of like olive oil or a little avocado, something like that. It could be, could be your main protein for a meal, like a bean burrito or a black bean burger or beans, on a taco salad. Yeah, beans are fantastic. So good. And if you like black beans, maybe branch out to try some other beans, red beans, like kidney beans or pinto beans, or go to the farmer's market and get some, colorful, like scarlet beans, scarlet runners, or, there's so many beans out there. There's thousands and thousands of kinds of beans. So yeah, maybe branch out with your color a little bit. Okay, our last substitution page here. So think about some of your snack stuff. If you've got some snacky like crackers and things like that, can you make it a little bit more whole food or whole grain, whole seed, or made out of nuts? A little bit less of the refined flour. And the nuts, the seeds, the whole grains are going to give you just more of that fiber, protein, satiety. Same thing with like your oatmeal. Your instant flavored oatmeal is pretty processed. So if you can go with like a plain rolled oats or even like a steel cut oats would be amazing. And then also branch out and think about what other grains are you not cooking with, like the quinoa or like bulgur, which is cracked wheat, or millet, polenta, which is corn, or like a whole wheat couscous. Couscous is a pasta, but we cook it like a grain. It's like a tiny pasta, and you can find it in a whole wheat version. So that's really nice because it cooks really fast. Similar to, well, really similar to all of these. These cook pretty quickly, like the quinoa and the bulgur. Okay, rice. We have over 40,000 kinds of rice on this planet. Commercially, we only commercially produce about 100 and a little over 100 different kinds of rice. But probably you've only tried a few types of rice in your life. So again, like you can branch out to black rice or forbidden rice. It's like a purplish color. Red rice, um, wild rice. Uh, yeah, lots of different rices. My favorite is actually the red, has a lot of flavor. The red and the black, a lot of flavor. If you are a white rice person or you've got people in your family that are just like, white rice is the only thing we're going to eat, I would try a sweet brown rice that looks like a white rice, but it is a whole grain, so you have your fiber, you have your protein, but it looks and tastes and acts like it's sticky. It's got a little bit more amylopectin in there. So it acts like more like a white rice. So it's called sweet brown, like literally that's what it's named. And you can get it at all the grocery stores. Your Asian markets like H Mart is gonna be the best deal, of course, but you can find it everywhere. And usually at the regular grocery stores, it's in like a little package on the bottom shelf. So you gotta like crawl around to find it, but you can find it. So look for that sweet brown if you are in a family that's like a white rice family. See, and don't tell them. Don't tell them you're gonna change it up. Just like sneak it in there and see what they say. Spice wise, there's a lot of no salt spices these days. Like Mrs. Dash has over 15 different versions of no salt blends, or like the Trader Joe's and the Costco 21 no salt seasoning blends. Those are great. Herb blends, Tuscany blends, Italian blends. You can do a lot of flavoring without the salt, right? And then again, you're adding those phytonutrients and the flavor. So check that out. All right, let's wrap up just talking a little bit about kitchen equipment. So sometimes a tool can make a difference. Now, sometimes they're buried, right? Like they're hidden in your cupboard, so you got to like dig them out and get them on the counter so you actually use them. But I will say, like, sometimes having the right tool for the job is pretty revolutionary. Like we use our Instant Pot all the time. And we actually got rid of our rice cooker because the Instant Pot cooks rice so well that we felt like we didn't need that other piece of equipment. So now we have like multiple Instant Pots in our life. Uh, so yeah, they're amazing. If you haven't used one, you don't know what you're missing. Or a really good blender, if you're trying to make smoothies or you're trying to make like creamy soups and blend it down, like a really good blender can make a big difference, or even like this immersion blender. So I would take stock of like what you have in your kitchen, what you feel like you maybe don't need and can get rid of, or that you actually want to start using, that maybe want to pull out of the cupboard and dust off and, get it out where you can use it. I used to think that panini makers were kind of ridiculous, and then my husband got one, and now he makes us these amazing grilled sandwiches, and I'm so happy to have that in our life. So, yeah, think about your equipment and maybe what needs to go or what you might need to add, and then take some time for some meal prep. So I will say, like, we mentioned the planning ahead is half the battle. It's the planning and the prep, right? So it's not just that you plan it and you grocery shop it and you have the plan, it's that you get it like halfway done so that, the things are cut up or the salads are made. Like Lyle's got his 4 salads for the week ready to go. Or you've, made a bunch of grilled chicken and it's going in a bunch of different recipes throughout the week. Or you've got your snacks in your little snack baggies. If it is ready to go and if it's visual, like you see it when you open the pantry or you open the fridge, you're gonna eat it. So it's when it's like, in the crisper and it's not washed, it's not chopped, it's not anything yet. It's just an inkling, it's just like an idea. Get it halfway there if you can, and then it makes the dinner prep easier, it makes the snacking easier to have that be a healthy choice. Okay, 7 o'clock. So let's wrap up. I am gonna just check the Q&A one more time here. Kay says, what about low glycemic rice? Okay, So it depends on what it is. So some of the rices and pastas that are considered low glycemic, how that works is they have basically like par cooked the thing, cooled it already. So when you cool your starches, like pasta, rice, and potatoes, and this is true when you do this at home too. When you cook the thing and then it cools, it forms something called resistant starch, which is more like fiber. It acts more like fiber in the sense that we don't break it down as well. So you might notice if you're checking your blood sugar, if you're someone who has a glucometer or like a continuous glucose monitor, you might notice that your blood sugar is different when you eat hot, fresh pasta than when it's cooled and you eat it later, like the next day or whatever, and you eat it later after it's been cooled. You're not going to have as much of a spike because of that resistant starch. So you can just do this at home, like batch cook your rice, batch cook your pasta, batch cook your potatoes, let them cool, eat them later. You're going to have less of that glycemic response. Now, I will say, like, the pasta company, like Dreamfields, who's doing this, they're doing it very like temperature controlled. They're cooling it in the sense of like what is going to create the most resistant starch, right? So you can try this. Like, go to the grocery store, get a regular pasta and like a Dreamfields pasta, and they'll tell you on the back like what the difference is. But you can do it if you have a glucometer and you're actually checking and see. You can check and see what's going on with your blood sugar. And some of my patients swear by it. Like, it really does make a big difference. And then you get to have a little more pasta. Or you could try like a different pasta, where you basically have a lower glycemic pasta to begin with, because it's something like Banza, where it's made out of chickpeas, which are high fiber and protein, lower carbs compared to like refined flour, right? So there's a couple different ways to do it. Regardless, you're going to change that glycemic response from the pasta or the rice anyway, because what are you going to add to it? Protein, which is going to slow down digestion, and a bunch of vegetables, which is going to slow down digestion of those carbs. So even if you don't want to buy the low glycemic rice, or you don't want to batch cook, if you do that pairing, protein, high fiber vegetables with your carbs, you're lowering the glycemic index anyway. You're lowering the response of your blood sugar after that meal by doing your pairing. Yay. So you don't have to have something special, but some people do like having like more of the pasta or more of the rice. It gives you a little wiggle room to have a bigger portion. Okay. Here's your homework. So determine your eating style out, maybe do some research with your favorite restaurants, look some things up, make some comparisons, think about portion sizes, work on slowing down, mindfulness. And then assess your kitchen skills. Like, what do you need to learn? What do you need to, maybe get equipment wise, or change up layout wise so that it actually makes sense for you to be in there and you enjoy being in there more to like get this prep done. Maybe you need to rearrange things to make space on the counter or to be set up so that, you really do get that prep done for the week. And then take some time on the weekend, do some batch cooking, prep for the week. Let's see how it goes. And hopefully you guys will have some feedback for me next month. Have a fantastic start to your summer, and I will see you in July. All right, everybody, take care.